I feel like in the marketing space nowadays, people either go down one path or another, like a full-on agency path where you render marketing services to other companies and help them grow their company, or you render a coaching/consulting offer where you don't actually do a service for the business, but instead you coach and consult with them and help them fulfill a tactic themselves that will hopefully result in them growing their business, right? So there's two paths to go down, okay? Now I'm going to be talking about, number one, what are some prerequisites for launching either of these business models? And then number two, some kind of pros and cons as we weigh out which model is better. And spoiler alert, I don't really think one is better than the other, but I think that you as an individual should decide which one suits you better based on the variables I'm going to be talking about in this video. So first things first, what's the overarching goal of this whole thing? What's the overarching goal of owning an agency and running an agency, or owning a coaching/consulting business, right? Well, the goal should always be to help other business owners grow their company. Of course, considering that we're talking about an agency or a consulting business that is in the, marketing and advertising and business growth space, right? You could be like a life coach, or you can be a consultant for CEOs or whatever. That's kind of out in left field, but I'm specifically talking about in the agency space, agencies and consultancies. Your goal should be, like I said, to help other business owners grow their company, okay? And then secondary to that is making money by doing so, right? You need to be able to help other companies grow, aka fulfill and render a valuable service. But number two, you obviously need to stay in business. You need to be able to make money doing so, okay? Now, before we dive into choosing one business model over the other, we need to ask ourselves the very obvious elephant in the room type of question, which is, are we qualified to fulfill that service, and can we do so profitably? Okay, so specifically in the coaching and consulting space, are you qualified to do so? Are you even qualified to go down the coaching path? Okay, well, that really comes down to, do you have experience and credibility, right? In the agency space, credibility and experience looks a little bit different. I think the threshold or the bar for agency owners being able to go out and offer that service is lower than a coach or consultant going out and offering coaching or consulting. You need to have a certain level of experience, okay? So first point here is, what do we need to have for either of these? We need to have experience and credibility. However, experience as a coach means you have scaled an agency before. You have grown a marketing agency. And no, I don't just mean to like 10K per month. That's not scaling. Whenever I say scale, a lot of people will think I just mean making more money, going from 5K a month to 10K per month or 20K per month. And people call that scale, when in reality, that's not scaling. That's just called making a little bit more money than you made last month. In order to scale, you need to have a full-blown, self-sustaining business that not only operates but grows on its own, okay? In order to have an exit, which would happen after you scaled a company, you need to have a business that is self-sustaining and not only sustaining but growing without you, the owner, needing to be present. So when I say scale, I mean the entire system is already built out, from your lead generation or new business development, your sales process, your closing, your onboarding, fulfillment, account management. And by the way, all those pillars I just mentioned apply to either the agency space or the coaching space or model, okay? You'd have all that built out. Again, those main pillars: lead generation, sales process, closing, onboarding, fulfillment, and account management. And then you as the owner need to have methodically removed yourself from each pillar over time, okay? You have sales and deals getting done without you having to touch anything. You have onboarding and fulfillment of the service and account management and client communications happening without you having to touch anything. That means you have like a self-sustaining business. That's an actual business. And then once you get that organism, that system to start growing, that is scaling, okay? But you making 5K one month as a freelancer and then you making 10K the next month as a freelancer does not mean you're scaling. That just means you made a little bit more from one month to the next. And good job, like good for you. You're growing your income. That doesn't mean you're scaling a company, okay? So again, going back to experience and credibility for the agency space versus the coaching space. In order to have experience and credibility as a coach, you need to have scaled an agency. agency. Having built out an agency with all those pillars I just mentioned, and then after you have that system in place, start to scale it, which usually means just adding more fuel to the fire, adding more lead generation, adding more marketing, more advertising, getting more appointments on your calendar, and starting to close more deals. That's what that means to scale a company that has a system that is in place and structured. You get the picture, okay? Having credibility and experience as an agency owner really just comes down to having mastered a skill, okay? If I have mastered the skill set of SEO or Google advertising, and I want to go out and start offering that as a service to other businesses, aka launching an agency, cool. All the credibility I really need is having a skill set that will produce good results for the client. Okay, so that's the first part of this video. I just wanted to get really clear. Whenever you're deciding, should I go down the agency route or the coaching route, the bar is much higher for the coaches and consultants. You have to have already built and scaled, truly scaled, after having built out the system, a business in the space that you are going to consult in. I know this seems like a obvious statement, but if you're in the marketing space, you and I both know that apparently it's not obvious to some people who go out there and scale an agency to 10K and then try to start consulting and whatnot. Okay. So anyways, if you're just getting started and you've mastered a skill set like Facebook ads or Google ads or organic social media growth or whatever, and you want to go out and offer that as a service, cool, good for you. Launch an agency. That's awesome. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the agency model here in just a minute. But if you're just getting started and you picked up a few clients and now you want to start coaching and consulting, don't do that because you don't have a business yet. So to segue back into the main point of this video is more about the nuts and bolts of which is actually the better model. Okay, let's say that all the prerequisite stuff I just talked about is in place. You have the skill sets and credibility to launch an agency, and or you have the skill sets and credibility and experience to launch a consultancy. Which one is actually the better business model when we look at the financial aspect of it and how client fulfillment works and so on and so on. And I really have 5 main points. Point number 1 is talking about profitability. Okay. Now, a lot of people will say that the consulting or coaching model is more profitable. And I hear that being said from a lot of people who have not really truly scaled a consultancy as well. I've done both. I've scaled an agency and a consultancy or coaching program to 7 figures. I've done that a total of 4 times. Okay. 2 agencies, 2 consultancies. So whenever I hear people say, oh, the coaching model is so much more like profitable, I know very quickly that they're speaking from a place of lack of experience because it's so not true. When we look at your cost of customer acquisition plus cost of fulfillment up against the actual lifetime value of the client, the agency model will win every time because of the long-term recurring revenue. I landed 1 client from cold email. This was back in 2018 or something. And that client stayed on board with our agency for maybe 4.5 years. And they paid us $240,000, okay, in retainers month to month over the course of that 4.5 years. I will tell you this, I probably can't go out there and land a $240,000 coaching client, okay, unless I also injected some agency service into that coaching relationship, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, including us. And I think that hybrid model is really good, but that's totally a whole nother video for another time. Okay. But here's what it comes down to, guys. The lifetime value of agency services is what makes that model so superior from, again, a lifetime value and a long-term profitability standpoint. You're going to make much more profit on a client-by-client basis with the agency model, again, because of how long you can retain that client over time and how much that client is going to pay you over potentially years that they stay with your company. So number 1, profitability. We have to think about customer acquisition cost and fulfillment costs versus the front end revenue and the lifetime value, okay, of that client. So to give you an example, with an agency, maybe your cost per acquisition from advertising is $800 and your fulfillment costs might be $400 to $800, let's say, if you're using a white label company, okay? And then you have the front end revenue, which maybe they're going to pay you $5,000 up front, and then they're going to pay you $2,500 per month. That's a good upfront profit and recurring profit in the long term. Whereas with a coaching client, let's say you sell a run-of-the-mill $9,000 or $10,000 coaching course and your cost per acquisition from advertising is only getting more expensive, let's say it's $1,500, and then you got to pay $1,000 to a salesperson for the commission, okay? After $10,000, now you're left with $7,500. And if there are any like cost of goods sold or fulfillment costs, such as hiring an account manager or paying for any softwares, things like that, that still continues to eat into the softwares and everything. That will all just eat into the profitability of each sale that you make. So long story short, when it comes to profitability and lifetime value and the financial side of things, I still think, even though I'm running a consultancy nowadays, I still think that the agency model is far superior when it comes to lifetime value and long-term profitability. The second point is ease of fulfillment. Okay, and this one is kind of a tomato, double-edged sword, whatever weird analogy I can use. There's two sides of the coin, okay? Ease of fulfillment. Now, whenever you're running an agency, it might be harder to fulfill the service because it might be like much more involved than coaching a business owner through doing XYZ tasks on his own. However, in the agency model, you can add employees to your agency to start to do that. You can add employees to your agency to start to do that fulfillment work for you, okay? I have this phrase I've been saying for a while now, which is that if you run an agency, the more committed you are to your client's success, the more removed you are. But in a consultancy or a coaching, the more committed you are to your client's success, the more involved you are. And really what I mean by that is in an agency, you want to remove yourself from fulfillment by putting specialists in place. As a consultant, if you want to ensure the success of your clients, it's better if you get more and more involved with them because after all, they are there for your input and your brain, right? So when it comes to ease of fulfillment, yeah, at the front end, it could seem like fulfillment for the agency might be harder because it's a lot of technical work in Google ads and SEO and Facebook ads and all this stuff. But in reality, you can actually remove yourself from client-facing fulfillment in the agency realm, whereas you might not be able to in the coaching realm. And this is another reason why I love the agency model so much, because you can build a business that is a completely faceless business, if you will. The client doesn't have to know who you are. You can put someone in place for sales and onboarding and account management and fulfillment, and you are truly running the business. You are out of the day-to-day. You're not talking to clients. You're not handling fulfillment tasks, etc. You're just managing the whole process. After all, if you think about these like huge marketing companies that have hundreds or thousands of recurring clients, do you think the client is ever getting on the phone with the CEO? No, definitely not. They have rows and rows and levels and levels and levels of account managers and fulfillment specialists, etc., that handle all that stuff. So again, even though fulfillment may seem like more work for an agency, as you truly start to scale it and you can remove yourself from the agency, whereas you might not be able to do so to the same degree as a consultant, running an agency gets easier and easier because you can replace yourself. The third one is scalability. I may have to give this one to the consulting and coaching model simply because consulting and coaching can be packaged. The offer can be packaged very, very succinctly. You can productize the fulfillment of that service so much to where onboarding and the start of the fulfillment process or the coaching process or whatever you want to call it can be so streamlined that it's easier to bring on, let's say, 15 clients a month than it would be to bring on 15 clients a month for your agency. So really brief point there. I think both agency and coaching model are very, very scalable, but I think you might be able to scale a little bit faster with the coaching and consulting model. Now here's the thing, fast doesn't always mean better, okay? Let's say you have 100 coaching clients and 100 agency clients. Again, going back to the point of lifetime value, if you have 100 agency clients and those clients stay on board with you for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, that is such a more solid revenue foundation for a business. It's safer. You have diversification amongst that many clients, right? Like if you lose one client, it's not going to affect your top line or bottom line that much. So there's two sides to all this. You might be able to scale faster depending on how your offer is productized in the coaching and consulting space, but the agency space, even though you might scale a little bit slower, and of course it comes down to the individual operator, but even though you might go a little bit slower, it's a little bit safer, right? I'll take the sure, safe path to success over the fast path to success any day. The fourth point, I probably don't even need to go over this because I already ranted on it a minute ago, is lifetime value, right? Earlier when I talked about point number 1, profitability, I also talked about lifetime value, okay? Factor in the cost per acquisition and fulfillment costs versus your front end and lifetime value revenue. I still think that the agency model has the most to give in that department when it comes to overall lifetime value of the client and therefore lifetime profit of the client. And then lastly, number 5, and this is probably the most important one, it comes down to personal fulfillment. I loved running a marketing company, but I love consulting with marketing agency owners even more. It comes down to a personal fulfillment and personal passion and joy type of thing, okay? I worked with a personal mindset coach 2022 and 2023, and he really taught me this concept of ikigai. Ikigai, I-K-I-G-A-I, is a Japanese concept that is really centered around finding your purpose in your work. If you can imagine a 4-way Venn diagram where each of the 4 circles is what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at, okay? So in the middle of all 4 of those things is your ikigai, or your purpose, okay? Where you really draw energy from and what you're truly passionate about. For me, that thing is straight up teaching. I love teaching. I could just sit here and talk about freaking marketing and business for 8 straight hours. That's what I love to do. So even though I loved running my marketing company, my marketing agency, I love even more consulting and teaching, okay? So if you have the skill sets of running an agency and providing a marketing service to companies, and you also have the skill set of like consulting with marketing agency owners, etc., and you also have the credibility and the track record and the experience like we talked about earlier, in order to make this decision between one model or the other, I think the most important thing is figuring out which one more aligns with your ikigai. Okay guys, so that does it for this video. Again, the 5 points I had of how to choose between the agency model versus the coaching model. Again, you want to make sure you have the credibility and experience and the track record to even dip into coaching and consulting before you do so. But if you do have that under your belt, then choosing between the agency model and the consulting model comes down to the profitability, ease of fulfillment, scalability, lifetime value, and then your personal fulfillment. If you have really thought through all of those topics, you should be able to make a pretty educated, well-informed decision on which path you should go down. I've done both of those business models twice now in the past 5 or 6 years. If you have any questions about either of those, feel free to comment on this video. I read all the comments and respond, or just reach out to me directly. Also in the comments, let me know what other topics you would like to hear about. I'm putting out content on this channel every single week. So having said that, hope you learned a lot. Hope this is valuable. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.